If you have celiac disease or gluten intolerance, you know the challenge to find safe foods to eat. Fortunately, there are many grain alternatives, which we discuss in this video. To date, the only treatment for celiac disease is gluten avoidance, which means no wheat, no barley, and no rye. And these are staples to the American diet. Yet many other cuisines have an abundant offering of grain alternatives that are perfect for a person with celiac disease. Oats should likely be given up if you have celiac disease. And while oats are not thought to have gluten themselves, there can be cross-contamination because they are harvested and processed with grains that do. Some experts state that oats are perfectly safe. Others suggest that only a person with celiac who's in complete remission should introduce oats into their diet when they're certified gluten-free. So for an initial elimination diet, I suggest that you steer away from oatmeal cookies, and I'm going to point you towards some alternatives that are much better for a person with celiac. Rice is a common gluten-free alternative. It's a staple of Cajun and Asian food, meaning there's lots of recipes to find as you start an elimination diet. Be aware though that many jambalayas and etouffees use wheat as a thickening agent, so check with the person who prepared the food to make sure that this is truly gluten-free. Ground rice grain is a common base for many gluten-free flours. It's often mixed with potato starch and tapioca, which are also gluten-free. Its mild flavor and fine texture are useful for baking, for coating foods before frying, and as a thickening agent. Because rice is produced in a high volume in the United States, it's pretty readily available and affordable, which is a big concern for many of these gluten-free alternatives, many of which become much pricier. Corn is another affordable gluten-free alternative. It's used a lot in Mexican cooking to make everything from tamales to corn chips. Corn tortillas hold up well against sauces, which make them useful for making enchiladas. Cornmeal is a great alternative for frying. It's popular to use in Southern cooking for frying up catfish. But be aware that not all corn dishes are completely gluten-free. Cornbread, for example, is largely wheat flour augmented with cornmeal. Almond flour is another alternative that's particularly helpful for making desserts, especially fancy French desserts. It can be mixed with matcha or beets to give the colorful batters that produce macaroons. Problem with almond flour is that it is very expensive, on the order of 10 times more expensive than wheat flour. Yucca is a root vegetable commonly used in Latin America and Caribbean cuisine. It's kind of like a potato and it makes great chips. Because it has a high carb content, it's very useful for gluten-free athletes who want a carb load. It can be ground into a flour and made into empanadas and arepas, and is also the source of tapioca. It's got a very mild flavor, which makes it useful for making cakes and other pastries. Teff flour is a gluten-free alternative used in Ethiopian cooking. It makes their injera, the characteristic spongy sourdough crepe-like bread that you use to help sop up all their delicious sauces. The drawback is that it is difficult to cook with. It's a very fine grain, and it makes controlling the temperature through the cooking process difficult. We've made passable injera at home after several attempts, but really after each, we just appreciate Ethiopian chefs that much more. When looking to substitute wheat, options abound, and with experimentation, you can bake and cook just about anything and make it safe for a person with celiac. Thank you for watching, and be safe.